So, hello and welcome. I'm here today with Beth Davis. And Beth, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. I really appreciate that you've said yes. I came across you around 4.5 years ago, and I remember that at the time I was living in India, and I was listening to a live call with you, an interview you had done with another woman. And as I was walking around our house, I clearly still remember this day, how touched I were by your honesty and your rawness. And I remember I walked into the house and said to Calvin, my husband, I was like, this woman, she's in such integrity with herself. You can really feel it in her voice. And I was just like, wow. I was really inspired by that. And your love for humanity as well. I remember, and you still have it until this day, that you're so sincere in, like, you got to find your purpose and you got to live it, and you really got to thrive when you're here. And yeah, that is something that I consider to be very special about you. You really have that. Yeah.
Thank you. That touches me.
No, yeah, it's
You made me cry. I've got Kleenex, so
we're off to a good start.
That's the best intro ever.
No, it's actually just how I feel. It's just
I feel it in my heart, the sincerity of what you're saying, and that's my dream, is that I can that this awareness of our purpose can touch you so much, and that it can touch others to know their specialness, their uniqueness, their real kind of miracle of existence, to understand the miracle of existence, that we have this body and the probability of it is so infinitesimal, and yet we're here.
Yeah,
it's such a gift. Life is such a gift. So
yes, yeah, that's beautiful put. Yes, thank you. So a few years later, I had sessions with you, and those two were very transformational. And I remember the first time we spoke, you said, because I freaked out a little as you started reading my hands, and I was like, I barely couldn't breathe. And you were like, okay, let's do some pelvic breathing together. And you were like, okay, feel your pelvis. And then you inhale and you exhale, and you inhale and you exhale. And as far as I understood, it was like a way of like helping me, process the information in a more calm and grounded way. And I would love if you could speak a little bit about that, the importance of grounding, and also maybe, share a little bit about how do you help others, and how do you yourself stay grounded within yourself as a person, but also in your physical body.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, the more I live, the more I realize with myself and with my clients that a great deal of our suffering is our inability to feel what is happening in our body. We might eat foods that irritate us, or we spend time with people who irritate us. We might not get enough sleep because we're overworking, trying to prove ourselves at a job, for example, or to achieve a degree. And in of themselves, these activities, eating and sleeping and working, aren't bad. However, our culture for so many thousands of years has put more of an emphasis on the mind. Yeah. And the danger with that is that the mind can visualize and create worlds, right? Yes. The mind can create worlds. But what humans have done is barreled full steam ahead to create these worlds without checking in with the body. And we see that played out on Mother Earth, because we've been barreling along on her like parasites. Yes. But the thing we forget is Mother Earth is much stronger than us and much bigger than we humans. She's got her own consciousness. The physical body represents the mother.
Yes.
It's the feminine in men and women, right? The body is sensory, as the five senses plus intuition. The body knows how to actually line up with life and create with a fair amount of ease.
Yes. I mean,
However, when we're in our heads, we create all sorts of problems. So one of the things I've been learning as I've been reading hands these 19 years is to help my clients get in their body. And in order for me to do that, I've invested a lot of time and energy and money in being in my body. So I do conscious movement, I meditate, I practice tantric breathing. Sometimes people will ask me about Tantra, and I tell them, don't get too excited. It's a lot of breathing. It's a lot of intense breathing. And if you use that intense breathing, sure, you might have great sex. A lot of people just aren't having great anything because they can't feel.
Mm.
And then the layer beneath that, often, the reason we're not feeling is, in large part, many people have suffered trauma.
Yeah.
Sexually abused or abandoned, or a parent died young, or they were a war refugee, that type of thing.
Yes.
And almost every person I've met has been through some significant trauma. And if the body isn't able to feel it, the mind will use its energy to repress it.
Yes.
And that is why most of us procrastinate, have phobias, have fears. It's not that we're lazy. It's not that we don't care. It's the brain trying to manage the stress.
Yeah. Trying to not be present with what's going on in the body.
Right. So what got me into this is that in reading people's palms, it's, as you know, very triggering.
Yes.
It triggers because we're going right to this person's soul blueprint.
Yes.
Right. We're going right into the truth of why they're here.
Yes.
And depending on wherever they are on their journey, they're open or not open to receiving that information.
And also, I remember that, when you read my hands, that you would speak both about my greatest strengths, but also about my greatest weaknesses. And so it was like that whole, like, dealing with all of that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's great value in being in our bodies. And, I think about the United States and the weight epidemic and people battling the bulge. And, when it really comes down to it, it's really not that complicated if you love yourself and you're moving your body. Like the way you gesture, right? The body wants to move, and it doesn't want to just move like a robot. It wants to dance. It wants to shoot a basketball. It wants to hit a hockey puck. It wants to do yoga. It wants to be able to contort itself to stay open like animals do, right? If you watch a cat or a dog, and even in the middle of their nap, they're doing all this beautiful stretching and, bristling and tensing and relaxing. Their bodies naturally flow with the energy. And so I think we need to reclaim that. And the more we get into the pleasure of movement, we're not going on a diet. We're not having to take up an exercise routine. We're going for walks because it feels good.
Yes.
And we're taking dance class because it's fun.
Yes.
So the more we can awaken the body, the more joy we can feel. And then that information that's mental, right, as I'm speaking in a reading, it's information, it's data for the person. Their body can download that information.
Can take it in better. Yes.
And then actually use it versus, information just coming in here and kind of bouncing off because there's no space in the body.
Yes.
To receive it.
So you mean, when you say use it, you mean actually start integrating it and live it rather than just understanding it and not living it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So your best tools for learning to feel your body and staying grounded in the body, is that movement and self-love, what you just said?
Yeah, I love, there's a wonderful meditation that my Tantra teacher, Charu Morgan, who's a wonderful teacher, introduced me to, and it's called the Quantum Light Breath by a guy named Jeru Kabal. He has since passed on. But he leads the listener through a breathing process that is accompanied by really beautiful music. And every time I do this meditation, I just have a cathartic emotional release, as do most people who do it. Even people who tend to be kind of, quiet. And the people I've known who've taken on the meditation, like as a 21-day or 30-day or 40-day practice, I mean, their whole body has changed. Right, because their abdomen has become relaxed and able to expand, and then their blood pressure regulates and their insulin regulates. Like, it's the breath, right? It's like,
Exactly.
right? The breath regulates the chemistry. So
Yes.
hormone levels balance out all from doing this meditation. So that's one great tool. And I personally love, like you, to dance. So conscious movement. In fact, I went to dance class last night and didn't realize it wasn't starting till next week. So there was no dance class. And then I was going to go salsa dancing, and I missed that too. So no dancing happened last night, but I did try. I tried to get there. I was all ready. So next week. So for me, it's dancing, and I really like yoga because it both stretches the muscles of the body and requires stillness of the mind. Because otherwise you tip over, right? You just tip over in the posture. If you can't be you can't be like texting while you're doing down dog.
No.
I suppose you could try. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't seen people doing that, like on Facebook while they're in yoga class.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So, and that's the other thing. I don't multitask. Like my phone is usually on airplane mode. And at night it's on airplane mode. And it's not the first thing I look at in the morning. Well, that's not true. I get one positive affirmation every morning that I pay for. I pay $100 a year to this woman, and every day I get a little message for the day that I find grounds me. So I have my little tools.
Yes.
I look at my affirmation. I go get my bulletproof coffee. Today I went down the beach. Get like, how do you want your day to go? But the thing is, the more we're in the body, the less the mind is making us run crazy. Like, there really is no hurry. You really don't have that much to do.
That's beautifully put. Yes. Yes.
And if you do have if I have a lot to do, it's stuff I want to do. Like, it's projects I've taken on.
Yes.
Creative, to be of service, right? It's not just busy work. And
yes.
It's certainly not just doodling around on my phone. It's just, it's screwing up people's brains. So the more we can break our addiction to technology and to me, it's about being a master of our environment, being the queen or king of our realm. And I dictate what comes into my realm. No one else is dictating the agenda. I don't have to answer an email because someone sent it to me. I can delete it if I want to.
Yes.
Plus I'm expecting it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
yes.
Like the mercy. It's like, no, if you're really managing your destiny, and that's what the hands help with, right? Oh, I have this purpose. I have these blind spots.
Yes.
Like for you, you are an artist. Fundamentally, a person who's here to bring beauty and truth into the world through creative expression.
Yes.
If you're not doing that, Nomi, right, your life feels like probably not good.
No, exactly. Yes.
So your life has to be structured in quite a different way than, say, someone who is a full-time professional healer, or someone who is a medical doctor, or their thing is to be a computer engineer, scientist. Now, they might also have the art thing. I mean, some people have many layers.
Yes.
Your life has to be structured so that you can do the thing that only you can do.
Yes.
And if you're so out of control, right, being bombarded, there's no peace.
There's no peace. Yes.
No focus. So.
And oftentimes, at least that's what I find, that we avoid that peace, that focus, because there's something within us that we're scared of feeling or dealing with, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then we end up, running around and.
Well, and I've noticed, I had an interaction with someone earlier this week who, I didn't know the person very well, but they were the kind of person, like, if I set a boundary with them, they would like have a temper tantrum, right? They had to create drama to get energy from the drama.
Yes.
And I'm not swayed by that. So I'm like, really? Is this how you want to use your life force? Like, because you can't handle the peace. Because you're right. When there's peace, there's intimacy. When there's peace with yourself and with another person, when there's peace, your vulnerability will show up.
Yes.
You might start to cry or contact that unresolved issue from childhood, or
exactly
that things aren't so great.
Yes.
And that everything isn't wonderful like you put it on Facebook, right? So, or everything is so wonderful and you feel guilty about admitting how wonderful it is. Whatever needs to come into the space can only come in if there's space in the space.
To really feel the deep feelings within us.
That's right. So we feel this. I used to do it. I was a complete workaholic, and my marriage disintegrated because my ex-husband was also workaholic. So we thought we were in a partnership, but we were really on parallel tracks, like roommates.
Yes.
And then I got breast cancer, which I think was totally related to a lack of intimacy, a lack of affection and closeness, which wasn't his job, it was my job.
Yes.
Now, I went through a phase of feeling like a victim. I don't want to act like I was so enlightened about the whole thing, because when I was in it, I was not enlightened about it at all. I was pissed off, raged, and I was sad. But as I thought, I've got to take on my own teachings if I'm going to heal.
Yes.
I always say to my clients, you got to feel to heal. So I allowed myself to really feel the experience. And so now it's not hanging over me like a cloud over my head. It's like, oh, that's something I went through. I'm okay now.
Yes.
Because I realized I hadn't been showing up for my marriage because I was afraid of the space, of the confrontation of the intimacy. So I filled my life with work.
Yes. Yes.
And then I paid a heavy, heavy price for being so stressed out. My body rebelled.
Yeah, you did. Yes.
So now my life is about no stress. Stress is not allowed because my health depends on being calm.
Yes.
So people that try to bring drama, I simply say no. Clients, friends, whoever, lover, no, we don't do that here. Because my body, my sweet body, can't take it.
Exactly.
So to me, self-love, it's yes. I mean, today I'm going to get body work for 2 hours and then I'm going to go get my nails done. So and tomorrow I get my hair done, right? So I definitely have the regimen of the physical care.
Yes.
And the exercise and the eating right. But even beneath that, the self-love is so much about honor. Honoring my intuition. Like the more I live, the more, for me, self-love is never betraying myself.
Yes.
Even if it makes me unpopular. Honoring myself.
Yes, your needs and what you feel guided towards.
Right.
Yes. Yes, I like what you're saying here, Beth. It makes me think about creativity. So as you just said, I'm clearly an artist and the people I most work with are also artists. So I was wondering if you'll say a little bit about what you see as being the most important as a foundation for creative people. I feel that you already said some, because in order to really be creative, if we spend a lot of focus, in draining relationships or drama, we will never get to that creative, we'll never get that creative channel open. Yeah.
So creativity, I feel very much, it can go, I've observed two extremes. The person who flows creatively because they're in touch with themselves. So they're not blocked. They're not in resistance. They don't have writer's block or dancer's block or music block because they're not trying to block anything from coming into their consciousness. The reason people procrastinate is, again, there's something they don't want to know.
There's something they don't want to feel.
Know that they were maybe sexually abused for 10 years. They don't want to remember that. Because once you remember that and heal that, it changes your whole life. It changes it for the better because then you can create. But you might have certain people who are no longer in your life. Right?
Yeah.
So there's always a cost. No matter what path we go, we will have to leave some things behind. So the willingness to know, there's a cost to being actualized. There's a cost to not being actualized. And so for the artist, the cost often is drama, procrastination, blockages. Or do the inner work and release that. And then of course there's the artist who's a genius, who's a little mentally touched, or they're an addict. And partly that's tricky because there are many brilliant people who also have, say, mental illness. They kind of go together.
Yes.
Right. So they're like, I think of Van Gogh, right? He's a classic, probably was bipolar or manic depressive, right? And he did dramatic things and they didn't have if he had the right medication, he might have not cut off his ear, but then again, he might not have painted those beautiful paintings. We don't know. So like I said, there's always a cost.
Mm.
There's always a cost. But what I do say to artists is, you know, if you are mentally unstable, get some help. And definitely you got to kick the addictions with help.
Yes.
Addiction I see across the board, and that's the biggest killer of long-term creativity.
Yes.
There's nothing better for creativity than sobriety and coffee, like according to so, you know.
I hear you.
My emphasis in life is on being awake, on being clear. Like I was hanging out with some friends last night, and I rarely drink, you know, once a month, maybe I'll have some wine or whatever, but I'm not a big drinker. And there was a bunch of guy friends, and they were having beers, and they're like, do you want to drink? And I'm like, yeah, can you get me a Red Bull? Because I want to stay awake for this conversation. It's past my bedtime. So they got me a sugar-free Red Bull, and they're like, really? That's all you're going to drink? I'm like, I'll still fall asleep, but yes, it'll keep me up for an hour. And they're like, you don't like to drink anything? And I said, well, maybe tequila. And the guy goes, yeah, it's the only alcohol. It's an upper. It's not a downer, right? Like, so yes. I place a very, very high premium on being awake, being conscious,
yes.
feeling clear, feeling good.
Yes.
I've also worked through a lot of trauma from my childhood. I spent years being bullied in school. There was some sexual molestation thrown in for grins. You know, we've all had our stuff.
Yes.
And I coped with that initially by shutting down. I did try a stint as being a drug addict in college, but it never really worked out. I'm just not built for it, apparently. Drugs just put me to sleep. So there was no fun with that. But I think to be creative, we have to decide, how do we want to come to our art? Do we want to come to it through suffering? Or do we want to come to it through clarity?
Yes.
And clarity, personally, is a lot more fun.
Yes. Oh, I like that you're saying that a lot. Yeah, that's also like taking it out of the, you know, the long history of being that artists have to suffer in order to really be creative.
They have to starve for their art. They have to be broke for their art. They have to be crazy for their art. No,
we can do that in a more balanced and enjoyable.
Yeah, we live in such an incredible time that if you do have a mental imbalance, there are ways to get help with that.
Yes.
There's treatment. There's support so that you can function and not lose your creativity.
And if you really decide, you can actually recover pretty quickly.
Yes. So the healing these days is so remarkable. And I think that's what gets triggered when we look at our hand map is, oh, wow, I really am this rare, remarkable being.
Yes.
What's in the way? Is it my addiction? Is it my past? Is it just fear?
Yes. Yes.
Because I don't want to look back on my life and go, yeah, I really blew that one. It's because I was chicken little, so I didn't take a risk.
So getting to that place of wholeness and willingness to look at where we are coping out with addictions or fear or drama. Yeah. That's very cool. Thank you so much, Beth. Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about that. These are great questions. Thank you for asking such really profound questions. Because we really took the conversation to a really deep place but you're very deep. So you're not a superficial person. So there you go. So we have a deep conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm a big proponent of is people monetizing their gifts, right? They don't have to be the starving artist. There's plenty of examples. I think of someone like Beyonce, who's just mad for her art. You know, she's so devoted to her art, and I don't see any place in her where she's going to be distracted by someone else's agenda, right? She has something to communicate. She leaves mystery around it. She doesn't explain her art. Who knows what's true and what isn't? I personally think she and her husband cook this stuff up because, you know, it's profitable and it's interesting, and they're like, hey, let's, you know, create a little controversy. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just admire the heck out of her and her husband because they've learned to monetize what it is they do. Now I'm not suggesting that people go Beyonce. And for a lot of people, that's just too big and too much spotlight and just would be too overwhelming. However, I think she's a great example of someone devoted to her art.
To her purpose, to her art. Yes.
And then I think about something Madonna said. I read in an interview years and years and years ago, and someone had asked her, what do you think is the key to your success? And she said, I ask lots of questions. And I never stop asking questions until I'm satisfied that I understand what's going on. And I will keep asking questions until I understand. Hence, good contract negotiations.
Yes.
Oprah's the same way. Well, tell me why and why and why and why and what's this, right? So,
and also that ability within ourselves, I'm thinking that, you know, to really inquire into ourselves and just, instead of just, you know, being on the surface, but getting in there. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I like to say is that the prosperity in your life is in the feedback. Because life is always giving you feedback.
Yes.
And when we receive the feedback, our life keeps improving.
Yes.
Right? So
beautiful. Yes.
So it's like, if you like, I'm allergic to lentils of all things. Like beans in general, and me, just bad. My body says don't do it. So that's feedback.
Yes.
I happen to love beans. I love lentils and black beans and kidney beans, but my body says, no, you may love the taste. We, however, are not designed for beans. Okay, that's feedback.
Yes.
So if I eat those beans, I'm going to pay the price, but I'm not a victim.
Yes.
Right? We get feedback when someone shows us who they are, right? Maya Angelou, I think she said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
The first time.
And
yes.
The first time. And people give us red flags. However, you know, in my personal life, I've put up with a lot of abuse and crazy behavior because I grew up in a rather unstable home. So it was familiar.
You were used to, yeah.
And I didn't know what the boundary was. So it's taken me a long, long time in my personal life to recognize, oh, that's a red flag. The answer is no. Like there isn't a second chance. There isn't, I'm not going to like give the person a chance. It's like my intuition is saying, run away.
Yes.
So that's feedback, right? And so if we really start paying attention to the feedback and responding, our lives become quite remarkable. Yes. But here's the rub. What it often requires is not being a people pleaser.
Yes.
If your need to be liked is higher than your need to be self-respecting or self-actualized, the self is always going to get thrown under the bus.
Yes.
So a lot of my women clients, I just encourage them to be a little bit more assertive, a little bit bitchier, a little bit better with the boundaries. Because in our culture, women are treated pretty horribly. You know, like that guy raped that woman and now he's like out of jail, that student.
Yes.
Why isn't that a felony where you spend life in prison? You rape someone, you spend life in prison. That's the appropriate, but our society still very, you know, we sexualize girls very young.
Yes.
There's just a lot of twisted stuff. So as women, not that men have their own stuff, but women are in this minefield of what is the boundary?
Yes.
You know, because our hormones are saying, let's merge, let's connect. But then we're running into people that abuse these boundaries. So I'm just very aware that it's taken me a long time to be able to say no to someone. Because sometimes they react.
Yes.
And I've watched with men how they can just flip. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm setting the boundary, because you're abusive.
Yes.
I'm playing Mr. Nice Guy until I say no.
Yes.
And then like outcomes crazy. So for me, that's been my area of growth. So I would encourage people, let the feedback in, but then you've got to act on the feedback. And acting on the feedback can piss people off. You may have to give up foods you really enjoy. You may have to stop hanging out at the local watering hole because it's every time you go there, you get wasted and end up doing something stupid, right? So the feedback. So that's what I leave people with. The riches, the prosperity, the money, the abundance is in paying attention to what is coming in from the field.
I like that. Yeah,
and acting accordingly.
Yes.
And you won't always be popular, but you'll sleep okay at night because you haven't thrown yourself under the bus.
I mean, we feel better. I feel better in my life when I'm true to myself. And am I true to myself all the time? No way. You know,
right?
But, you know, I'm growing, I'm learning, and you know, when I have those conversations, instead of dragging them out, I'm like relieved, and I'm like, it's, you know, it's nice. There's space around me. So
Yeah.
I really like that you're saying that.
Yeah. So that's what I would leave people with is like, you really want to make more money, pay attention to your life and all the ways you give your power away.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to be prosperous when we treat ourselves like doormats. Or conversely, we bully other people. You know. So how do we want to show up in the world? I'd like to show up feeling good about myself so I can be a role model to encourage other people to feel good about themselves and that it's not contingent on everybody's opinion of me. Right? Like as if Beyonce listened to everyone's opinion, you haven't any work done.
Exactly.
But she goes into her creative realm and she stays true to that, as any great artist does, as you do. Right? You're focused with your dancing. I mean, it's such a dedication. So
thank you so much, Beth. Where can people find you? Where do they go to?
Oh, I have a new website up.
Oh.
PalmReadingPro.com. PalmReadingPro.com.
I'll link to it below so you know everybody has a chance to
check it out. You can't even get on my mailing list on that website yet. We just launched it, but I wanted to get it up. But people can. There are some instructional videos on there, and they can kind of see what we're about.
Very cool.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you so much for doing this. I have enjoyed every moment of it.
Likewise.
Thank you.